So I'm going to try this again. And Becky sent me a bunch of stuff to figure out how to edit my videos and maybe like be a little more cohesive, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't done any of that yet, so you're just going to get me trying to do this all in one take, and that's going to look how it looks. So anyway, I made another list. This time it's called Fears That Are Real But Not Serious, and basically it's just a list of things that I am bothered by. I know they're ridiculous. It doesn't matter. It's still a thing. So yeah, you know, and I even did an odd number for you guys, because normally I try to make this an even number, but you know, whatever. It's been the kind of week where I'm just trying not to eat Taco Bell. Basically, that's like a goal, is to just not eat Taco Bell. And I know that sounds sort of gross and maybe even a little sad, but it is what it is. You know, sometimes it just, I want somebody else to cook, even if it's not particularly satisfying. So, anyway, it's Thursday when I'm doing this, so success so far. So, that's a win. Alright, so number one on my list is possums. And it's not because they are, you know, dog-sized rats, essentially. It's that they are the face of evil in marsupial form. And actually, I do know when this started. I was going to say I didn't, but I do. When I was a child, some adult in their infinite wisdom decided to tell some terrible story at like a Bible study at my house about how a rabid possum tried to break into their house and was like scratching at their glass door and stuff, and eventually, you know, they shot it out of a tree. So for some reason that scarred my young mind, and I could not sleep with the windows open, because, you know, in Northern California that's a thing. Like when it's like this time of year, it's actually cooler and people just leave the windows open. Well, we don't bother with air conditioning. It's amazing, actually. But anyway, so I couldn't sleep with one open for like a lot longer than I care to admit, and I gotta be honest, sometimes it still crosses my mind. Like when I try to go camping, I just, like, some part of me is convinced they're gonna break into my tent. They being the possums. Anyway, the next thing on my list is sharks in the river. And you might go, where does that come from? But this is a real thing that's been on my mind for many years. Started when I actually went to the river every summer and floated in it on like an inner tube at the beach. And, you know, the thing is that whales with some regularity get lost in the river. So it occurred to me at some point as I'm floating out in the infinite nothing that, you know, why couldn't a shark? And I'm not saying that I've ever like even looked into this. I've never Googled to see if this could happen, because I really don't want to know, truthfully, but I feel like it could. And that is something I think about every time. Doesn't matter if it's a lake or whatever. It really, I think about it every time. This kind of ties into this next one, which is crocodiles, which really I don't think I need to say anything besides the word crocodile to make you understand why they're terrible and horrifying. But I mean, I'll try anyway. They're living dinosaurs. They're fast on land and water. Death rolls. I can't even talk about them for too long without getting a little like edgy about it, but crocodiles. And it's not that I've ever even been in contact with a crocodile, other than like, you know, the pits they have at the aquarium where you like look down and there's this one sad albino crocodile. That's the closest I've ever gotten. I don't think I could survive in the South, where that's just like, oh yeah, a gator got him, you know, which I guess is an alligator, but still, basically the same idea. It doesn't matter. They're almost the same. Their teeth go different directions or whatever the difference is, but ugh, no. Next, spiders. And I realize it's not original, and maybe there is some, it's not really an unreasonable fear because they are poisonous, some of them, and whatever, but I've always had this like recurring waking nightmare where I just imagine a tarantula running across my bed while I'm in it. And I had this even when I lived in a place where tarantulas aren't exactly common, but now I moved to the desert where they have things like tarantula migrations. And I once worked on a job site where like it was in the path of migration. And there's like not a lot you can do about that. It's just they're on a mission. They throw their hair if they get too upset. I mean, on the one hand, like I would kind of like to have that superpower, but on the other hand, what the fuck? Like, how do these things become like exist? Like they're scared, they're angry, they throw their hair at you like that. Anyway, nature. All right, the next thing is escalators. And I felt this way again since childhood, but I always had this fear of being sucked into the escalator, and I would get frequently like trapped at the top of the escalator, just unable to make it happen. And even now, like I still have to let 3 steps go by before I can get on it, and I never got stuck in the escalator, but it was always a thing in the back of my mind, like Mallrats, that moment in Mallrats, where like that kid is on the goddamn escalator again, like that's my real thought pattern. Escalators are terrifying and they're not to be fucked around with, and I don't understand why some parents are so cavalier about the way their children are on them, because I was at Macy's once, and some little kid actually did get sucked in the escalator, and let me tell you what, like not only was that terrible for the child, and I assume her mother, but it was a mess. It was a mess. And the guy I was with at the time, like, kind of had to escort me to, like, the kitchen area away from all of it, because I was just like, this is what I'm talking about. And he had heard the spiel before, so he was just like, oh my god, I can't believe this actually happened while she's here. Let me just cover her in an emotional blanket and just kind of shuffle her out of this store before she, like, gets too sweaty about it. So, yeah, escalators. The next thing, wooden Indians at the tobacco store. I was in the mall, and all of my stuff seems to start in childhood now that I'm like saying this out loud, but anyway, one time when I was at the mall, I started like having a meltdown, like and I'm a little kid, I guess, and my mom could not figure out what my problem was. I was like shaking and crying and carrying on and whatever. Clearly, drama has always been something that I'm really, it's easy for me to access. So she finally got me to kind of like point at what the problem was, and it was the wooden Indian that stood in front of the tobacco shop. And I gotta tell you this, they're still kind of creepy. It's that fixed gaze, you know? Like, it's like the Sphinx on the Never-Ending Story. Like, you know something's bad's gonna happen. Like, it's just, why? Why does it, I mean, I understand there's probably some background to how that even got started, but I don't care about that. I don't understand why we still have it. And I'm always just a little convinced that it's actually alive. I'm possibly reading too much fiction, but yikes. And the final thing, possibly the most important thing, bread pudding. And it's a texture nightmare. That's why it's on the list. It's this half-baked, half-assed attempt at quick bread. I don't appreciate it, and I don't understand why so many people get excited about it. It's mushy. It's like warm but not hot. It's just, I don't know why you want to ruin bread like that. Like, bread is amazing. Bread pudding? No, thank you. So, yeah, that made the top 7. That made the top 7. So, anyway, like I said, I'm getting learn how to do these videos with real equipment at some point. But anyway, for now you just get Pajama Erin and Mr. Tumnus. So anyway, this is my Saturday post.